Are we on? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Microphone check. Lights. Cameras. This is swanky. This is lifestyle. This is culture. Welcome to the social center of everything culture. Culture Daily.
I just love the group so much. That's East African group. Talking East Africa. Before we that's why our conversation will be centered on this morning. But before that, let me just tell you this real quickly that it pays to keep it in the family. Send money from one ZPay mobile money wallet to another and get a bonus. Switch to ZPay mobile money to get more and pay less. Receive a bonus every time you send money from ZPay to ZPay. All right, it's a Jimmy D. Now, get a 5 CD bonus every time you send money from ZPay to ZPay. Now, it's very easy. Dial *270#. Press option 2 to send the money, and then you chop the bonus in addition to that. Also, now summer is officially here, and all the biggest titles come alive on the big screen at the Silverbird Cinemas. You can catch Spider-Man across the Spider-Verse, The Flash, Transformers, Rise of the Beast, Barbie, Mission Impossible. Shall I see? Remember watch Barbie? What'd you say?
No. I want to watch Transformers.
Let me just quickly say this here.
Yes.
So I saw a tweet of a young man
who
actually went to see Little Mermaid here. And then when he was coming out, he saw other men who had gone to see. And obviously his masculinity,
was
his
challenged.
fragile masculinity was checking it.
Well, you should go and watch Mission Impossible, Indiana Jones, and the finest of Hollywood, Bollywood, and Nollywood, and top quality Ghanaian movies this season at Ghana's #1 cinema franchise, and complement your movie experience with Ghana's #1 popcorn. Now it's the best time of the year to create and share memories with the ones you love at the West Hills or Accra malls, where you find the Silverbird Cinemas. You can follow the account on social media. It's Silverbird Ghana and all social media platforms, or the website, which is silverbirdcinemas.com/West Hills, or you can do same and check it out on /Accra. Silverbird Cinemas. It's all about entertainment. I'll be telling you about how you can also keep your gum and teeth healthy in a bit. Before we do that, so on Culture Daily, we've exhausted a lot of conversations around Western music. Ghana, Liberia, Nigeria, we spoke a lot about it. And also, we spent some time talking about, the rise of Amapiano music, Kwaito music in South Africa. Well, the only one time that we probably challenged or spoke about Diamond Platinums was when we were talking about Young, Rich, and something.
Famous.
But anyway, how about we also take a scoop into the Eastern African music space? Because we want to understand some of the things that make it work. You find one of the biggest music spaces you have in Africa. Well, it's only right that, like they say, if you can't beat them, join them. Now, this morning, we are honored to have two renowned personalities join us from that space via Zoom for a good conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, please let me welcome Camila Owora, Regional Manager for East Africa Ziki Music, and also Agnes Opondo, I hope I have the names pronounced right. Pardon me if I didn't. Licensing and Partnerships Manager, Kenya Mdondo, if I had it right, Mdundo. I think so. Anyways, they're joining us on via Zoom, and there they are. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, fine from this side of the continent. On our side, one of our local languages to say Akwaba. How about you? How would you welcome us to your East African space, both of you?
Habari za mchana. It's afternoon here.
And
on our end, we can also say Sasa.
Okay, great.
That's a casual greeting.
I think I learned one that was Poasana. Help me out. I think it's Swahili. Anyway, don't mind me. I was trying to learn. But let me welcome you to our side of town. How was your weekend before I jump into any deep conversations? To Camila.
Yes, hi. Thank you for having me. My weekend was very relaxed, which is very rare to stay in the industry that I work in, but I managed to get 8 hours of sleep.
Amen. I like that.
Very
Amen.
good.
Before I come to you, Agnes, Camila, since you mentioned you having a very tight schedule indirectly, give us an idea of what you do.
Okay, so I'm the regional manager at Ziki Media. Ziki Media is one of East Africa's largest, I'd say Africa's largest music distribution company. So we focus on music distribution, content production, and music marketing for some of the biggest artists in East Africa, like Diamond Platnumz,
Oh,
as you
wow. That's a
mentioned
very big
earlier.
client you have there. I said that's a very big client you have there.
Very.
Agnes, give us how about yours, your weekend, and tell us just a bit of what you do as well. Then we can jump deeper into the conversation.
My weekend was also great. I was also lucky to get some rest, considering what I do in the industry. So what I handle in Kenya, I handle conversations around music licensing on the Mdundo platform. So Mdundo is one of Africa's largest music platforms, and our target market is usually people who want to download music and stream it later. So we do have an app, but our focus is largely on the website where our users can come and interact with African music for download to listen later, or alternatively, they can still stream on the app or also stream on the website.
Okay,
So
let me
that's
stay
what
on
I
you,
do.
Agnes. Let me stay on you, Agnes, for a second. Just so let's do a quick recap. So, in the past 10 years, how has the music industry in Eastern Africa grown? And if there are any particular milestones as well that you can highlight? Same question to you as well, Camila.
So I would say probably digitally, the digital space has had a big influence on how people consume music in East Africa right now, and even the way the artists are promoting their music. Yes, many of them still do a lot of live shows, but there's a lot of action happening on the digital streaming platforms where artists are trying to push their content, market it on social media. And also the last 10 years has seen I would say in the East African space, like more genres come up, and it is a space where people listen to a lot of genres. There's the gengeton, bongo, the Ugandan dancehall, the sengeli in Tanzania. So it's a space with a lot of options right now, I would say. There are more options, and also people have embraced the digital space more.
Interesting. Yes, Camila.
Yeah, so in addition to what Agnes has said, I think digital has really played a very vital role when it comes to music streaming and growing East African artists, in addition to also the genres like she's mentioned. But I'd also tap in and say the education aspect of it. Artists are becoming more aware on the different opportunities that lay for them outside their industry or outside their region, being East Africa. So we're seeing a lot more collaborations. We're seeing artists going to perform in different parts of the world because their music now is getting consumed. And most importantly now, artists are treating their craft like a business. Before they were very focused on the music industry. So you wake up, release one song, it will trend for a little bit and then you're done. But now they're looking at it in terms of how can they invest, how can they get money back into their craft and then invest it in bigger projects. So they're looking at it holistically and not just as a little bit of what they do within the industry.
Well, Camila, so prior to this digital media, experience that has brought the rise of a lot of new artists and genres as well, what was the landscape like prior to this in terms of business, opportunity for new artists to be birthed, genre? What was it like? If you can just have a fair understanding of what was going on in the East African space.
I'd say it was a bit difficult because, like I'm sure it was in Ghana and also Nigeria, in the West Africa region generally, artists used to have their content on CDs and on tapes. So you'd find you'd record your music and then you'd put it on a CD or a tape, and then you rely on your close friends, maybe a manager that you had at that point in time to go out and distribute your content for you. But then you would not be making money from that. You would ideally be spending a lot more money going around sharing it with radio stations, TV stations. So a lot of artists in East Africa were really relying heavily on shows and appearances at different events, maybe a concert, a club, and that is ideally where they'd be making their money from, because they were not ideally making money from their content on CDs or tapes. So right now you see from the comfort of their home, from their studio, they're being able to now turn that into a more profitable way of business. Of course, there's still a few threats to the industry that are still harboring them from moving forward, but we're definitely seeing a shift from now moving that content from, I'd call it an analog way, to more of the digital way.
Well, clearly, digital transformation has brought new opportunities. But Agnes, I'm also asking you on conversations about genres. Now, in Ghana, for example, I mean, you had the likes of the high life music, you know, that was very popular. That is very popular in our space. We go to South Africa, we talk Amapiano. What was the genre, or what genre is the most consumed in the East African space, and how well that has been fused into the new conversations about Afro beats?
I would say in East Africa, Afrobeat is very popular here, but the East African market is different in the sense that it is really decentralized in terms of genres. So yes, while there are genres that are really popular, but the other genres such as gengeton, for instance, in Kenya, drill in Kenya is also doing very well. You also have in Uganda, for instance, they have their own dancehall that is really popular there. Bongo flavor is also very popular, especially in Kenya and Tanzania. So we do have popular genres like Afrobeat, Amapiano, and Bongo. But the other genres, even the alternative music scene in East Africa is really popping, with so many artists doing a mix of different things. You find people mixing rumba and drill. You find people mixing amapiano and gengeton. So it's really, really diverse in terms of the fan base, what they are consuming. So it gives the artists in all the different genres an opportunity to shine, and also just market their music to their own niche audiences.
Yeah.
Yes. So I still on that conversation. I wanted to find out from you if the artists in East Africa are being forced to do songs in English, you know, just to get some kind of penetration and do away with Swahili, because obviously, you know, Diamond Platnumz is good at what he does, and even with some of his songs, he's had to remix, you know, some of his songs with some of these Afrobeat superstars just to get some kind of penetration, moving away from his home market or local market. How has that challenge also changed the face of authentic music in East Africa?
I would say that while many people there's that debate whether people have to switch to English to be able to penetrate the market, but I necessarily don't agree with it, because we see Diamond Platnumz, for instance, even artists like Ali Kiba from Tanzania. We have our very own Sauti Sol who still sing in Swahili. And I've seen even the Nigerian artists, they still sing in their own Yoruba and still make good music. So I feel like music is it is a universal language, as they say. So that whole conversation of having to mess up your authenticity by trying to sound, because there are songs that wouldn't sound great in English. They would only sound best in the traditional language, maybe the Swahili, for instance. So yes, many artists are trying to do the English music, but it's not necessarily, I don't think that is the agenda. It's more about blending the languages that are here with English to be able to penetrate other markets. And also the collaborative aspect, where we see, we just saw Bien do the Nana remix. Yes, Nana is by Joshua from Uganda. Yeah, it was an English song, but adding in that twist of Swahili flavor just makes that remix all better. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that. But yes, people are trying to do more English, for instance, but it's not necessarily to penetrate markets. It's just to add a flavor to the songs.
Do you have any add-ons, Camila?
Yes, so I'd say it's a catch-22 situation. So it's a debate I'm constantly having with my artists on a daily basis. But what we call it is the international sound. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to sing in English for you to get recognized. You just have to give something that has an international feel. If you do look at the Afrobeat songs, a few of the Afrobeat songs, you'll find very keywords, like when Burna Boy says, last, then you'll find something that a lot of people will pick up from. But it's not necessarily that you have to have it in English. It is how are you combining our natural sound, which is either gengeton, Afro Bongo, which is a new sound by one of our artists called Louis, or Bongo Flavor, and then how are you meshing it into what is already known as Afrobeat, or creating a sound that a lot of people can dance to and they can vibe to and use some of maybe the instruments that we use in our traditional music, etc. So it's definitely a debate that we keep having, especially with the artists from East Africa, because a lot of them are very familiar with Kiswahili. But then it's how can we combine that Kiswahili and make it a very international flavor. And I think we have been able to do something of the sort with some of the collaborations we have done with, for instance, Diamond Platnumz and Diljit, who is a very big artist from India. And they collaborated on a song. We also did the same for Rayvani and an artist called King from India. So it's just meshing flavor from different genres and being able to come up with a very nice sound that can appeal to the audience.
Okay, so it's inspiring to hear that the authenticity is still preserved, and so the creatives and the talents are allowed to still sing in the language they find comfortable singing in. But I want to draw your attention to something. In February 2022, the BBC, Emmanuel Onyango is a BBC journalist, BBC news journalist in Nairobi. He actually did a story that said that Kenyan music is being drowned by Nigerian sounds, and he was looking to have the solution in having the quota of Kenyan music on radio stations from the current 40%, which was agreed in 2014, to 75% of the tracks aired. Are you guys facing the same problem that some of us are facing here? In not just Kenya, but I'm sure in East Africa, where there is an influx of, we know it's Afrobeat music, it covers all African countries, but there is like a narrow focus influx of Nigerian music in your space, which of course has led Emmanuel to write this to the BBC. What is the landscape right now? Where is Kenya's place in the Afrobeats conversation? I think Agnes can start, and then our sister would reply to that.
Kenya's landscape is very, very decentralized. I think of all the East African countries, in terms of genre preference, Kenya is very decentralized. So yes, we do have a lot of Afrobeat being played on our stations, but our artists are really authentic to the sound. I'll mention artists like, for instance, we have an artist called Okello Max. He does a contemporary rumba sound. It has very little Afrobeat in it, and he has a huge fan base. You have the gengeton artists who are running the streets by just putting their music out there on social media, doing gengeton is more of like, I would say it borrows a lot from hip hop, for instance. I would say it borrows a lot from hip hop, yeah, but it has like a very Kenyan urban street edge to it. So in terms of airplay, yes, we're still having that conversation where we are trying to get the local stations to play more Kenyan music. But the fact that people can still, many Kenyans access music online, it has still kept the Kenyan music authentic, and it has kept the artists focused on what they do. So yes, there are very many popular Kenyan artists who are experimenting with Afrobeat, but we do have acts who are doing a lot of, like there was a drill Rumba fusion, for instance. Nobody thought that you would merge a hip hop genre with sound like Rumba that originally came from Congo. So in Kenya, in the Kenyan space, the digital space has kept the decentralization alive, with many artists being able to reach their fans without necessarily conforming to Afrobeat. Yes, the media is also catching up. So it's still a conversation that I would say is ongoing right now in the Kenyan space.
Camila, let's hear your take on this as well.
Yeah, so I actually agree with what Agnes has said. We would find a lot of Afrobeats was actually penetrating into the East African music industry. Even to date, I was in Tanzania a few days ago, and when I scope the market, or when I go to a bit of the clubs to just see what people are vibing to, there's still very heavy Afrobeat. But the differentiation that I find is that there's still also a lot of support from the locals. So you'll find a lot of clubs, radio stations are heavy on pushing bongo music. They push a lot of Kenyan artists also. And the consumption mainly of bongo is actually not in Tanzania. The major consumption of bongo is in Kenya. So you find a lot of Kenyans are consuming more of the bongo content. So artists are making a lot of their money from the streaming revenues that they're getting from the Kenyan audiences. However, for the Kenyan artists, we're giving them space to grow. So like for us, we're very keen on bringing on board a lot of the emerging artists in the industry and guiding them and helping them to be able to, one, create the unique sound, international sound, but still incorporating what it is that they have been doing all along. It's work in progress. It's not something that we'd say we're able to solve it in one day, 1 month, a year. It's something that will take time. But the more that we just keep supporting them and pushing their unique craft, because we can't make them become like somebody else. We can't make them become an Afrobeat artist. We can't make them become a bongo artist. But it's how best are we being able to nurture the talent that they have naturally. So definitely, yes, there's still a lot of consumption from outside. But slowly but surely, with streaming, it has really helped with a lot of the local consumption, and even through events, it's also helping a lot when it comes to getting local content consumed by a lot of the audiences.
So, Camila, still on that conversation of streaming, what is the internet penetration like in Kenya at the moment? I know it's the ecosystem, the tech ecosystem in Kenya, especially East Africa, has been thriving and buzzing over the last few years. And of course, like you said, people are finding music via these platforms. But really, how has the cost of data, and the activities surrounding internet streaming contributed to either the success or the decline of East African music?
So I'd say the internet penetration is roughly between the 60% to about 70% mark. So it's quite high because Kenya, and let me use Kenya as an example, 80% of our population is youth. And when I'm talking about youth, it's people who fall in the age group of 18 to 35. And a lot of these people, we're constantly on our phones, and we're using our phones either for music, for social media, or to engage on calls. So right now, when I compare, I'd say even between Tanzania and Uganda, our data is quite affordable. We have very fast-paced internet because we have a lot of advancement in technology from a lot of the partners, telco partners, and other IT companies that have opened within Kenya. And that has significantly contributed to a lot of people getting access to content on their mobile phones, on their tabs, on their laptops, etc. So it's bringing together a lot of that connectivity. What's also helping is streaming platforms. such as Mdundo and all the other streaming platforms, are getting into partnerships with some of these telcos. So they're offering free packages, or they're offering subsidized packages where you can buy airtime for a certain amount or a certain bundle, and then you get access to the whole catalog of the music on these streaming platforms. So that has definitely significantly contributed to a lot of people now taking advantage of those packages and those opportunities to stream
Okay,
content.
so this goes to both of you, but Agnes, if you can start us off on conversations about the royalty system in your country, let's say Kenya for a start. You know, we've heard in various countries artists always complaining about the money they make back aside streaming and stage performances. The royalty system isn't too strong. What about your side?
In Kenya, artists can make royalties through various ways. The first one is their collective management organizations, through which they license usage of music in terms of communication to the public, as well as streaming on the radio stations. So we have 3 CMOs here. We have the Performers' Rights Society of Kenya, Music Copyright Society of Kenya, and the Kenya Association of Music Producers. So performers is for musicians and actors, while MCSK caters to authors, composers, and arrangers, and Association of Music Producers caters to executive producers. There have been a lot of challenges in that end in terms of collection of royalties, accountability, among other issues. But those are things that I've noticed the current government is very keen on addressing, so that artists can get rightful pay for the airplay of their music. Artists can also get royalties through their streaming services. That's the Mdundos, the Spotifys, the YouTube, which, because of the digital landscape, is a very profitable venture for many East African, or I would say many Kenyan artists as well, because of how those systems are structured. The numbers of users that are active on a monthly basis on these platforms has also improved the amount of royalties that artists are making from streaming. So there's also those other things like the synchronization that I've seen Netflix do with certain Kenyan artists, such as Victoria, which are also still a good revenue stream. And even the film market in Kenya, for instance, is very, very active in consuming Kenyan music. So those are also just some of the ways that artists have been making money in terms of, I would say, licensing, royalties, and synchronization. That is excluding the live shows that they do. So it's still a market that is growing. We're trying to get more and more people to pay for music, because many Africans, I would say, we do not like paying for music. So if you have a show, people will ask you, am I getting free tickets? You know, many people are still not convinced to pay for a premium subscription for music. But for platforms like Mdundo, for instance, we do have telco-backed products, which users can download mixes at a very affordable price. So we have partnerships with Vodacom and MTN in a bid to address that. And we also still have the free streaming, where users can log into the platform, download music for free, and the artist will make money based on the ad revenue that comes from that side of the platform.
Okay, so we'll be resending a link to reactivate the time so we can have extended conversations with you. But when we come back on that, we'll be talking also about, you mentioned government support to this space. We'll broaden the conversation a bit more and see government's support in creative arts space in East Africa, or specifically speaking in Kenya, as well as collaborations and how well the music system is structured to allow birth of new artists and how they can also grow on these platforms. So just stick and stay with that. So we'll just come back to you in a couple of minutes if you don't mind. But back to the studio convo, guys. We've heard about what they say. How different is this picture painted to some of the issues or opportunities that we are facing in our West African side of town?
It's not different at all. I think it's basically just a mirror of what we face here. She mentioned that their royalties system might be functioning pretty good, even though the government is directly involved. So that might be the only place I might say that maybe, I don't know the situation, but they might have an upper hand on us. But with regards to the creative process, whether to do Kiswahili or English or this or that, or even the kind of genre and all that, they are fighting the same battles we are also
We are
fighting,
also fighting.
here. So that just tells you that the narrative is across territories, and what we need the most is to continue to be authentic, because I realize that if they are having that same dilemma there, then probably all the other African countries are having it. And what happens when we all compromise and start making music is that we kill our authentic, unique cultural influences. So you don't hear Swahili, you don't hear Akan, you don't hear Ewe, you don't hear Hausa, you don't hear Yoruba again, because all our creators are focused so much on appealing international that they are selling away the authenticity for acceptance. So I think it's even a good enough proof for us to keep pushing that uniqueness, so that when I hear Sauti Sol, the fact that they are doing Kiswahili is what makes it unique and intriguing for me. When I hear Ayat, the fact that he's doing Hausa is what makes it, so that people have choice and people have options when it comes to African music consumption. What I wanted to ask Camila is, Mdundo, being an alternative to your Spotify's and your Apples and all that, I wanted to find out what
The patronage.
what the patronage is like and the difficulties they, because tangent of Aftown. I don't know if you know Jonilla.
Yes.
Jonilla put out a post, about Ghana should have. I might be misquoting, but I'll read it later. Something about Ghana should try and get its own streaming platform, blah blah. I was like, we've had it.
Yeah,
and Ghana, we've had it. We're ahead of everybody. We had it ages ago, and nobody cared about it. So Mdundo being such a platform as well in Kenya, are they also facing the same, the same challenges that the likes of Aftown and Co faced when we were trying to pioneer here in Ghana? So this is what he actually said. He said, Ghana requires a local streaming platform. And it quotes says digital music expert John Nilla. So he went on to explain promoting Ghanaian music, a dedicated streaming platform could serve as a centralized hub to showcase and promote Ghanaian music, blah, blah. I mean, the narrative, economic empowerment, cultural identity and representation, data and insight, support for emerging talents, local music industry growth, accessibility and affordability of music. These are all things Aftown was offering and struggling to push to people.
Yeah.
So it begets the question that the audience is a tough one. They don't want to change.
They don't want to change.
Are the audience the same in Kenya?
Yeah.
The problems, the hurdles that Aftown had to face that led to, Antoine said priorities have changed. People are married, have kids, different businesses. They can't keep pouring money into Aftown. So Aftown is on ice, more or less, even though it's still functioning.
Yeah.
Nobody's spearheading it at that pace anymore. Are they facing the same problems with Mdundo, or have they faced it? Did they overcome it? How? If it's that their audience is more open-minded to new technologies and owning their own thing, then we can also use that to say, okay, maybe our audience is the problem. So maybe we are good at building softwares and good at building streaming platform and all the digital stuff. We are good at that. What we are not good at is convincing the average Ghanaian that this is the choice.
At this point, the average African.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
when we get them back,
I think
those
if I may,
Yes, please.
just to add
Oh,
to
you
what
may.
Cyril is saying, what I've noticed, having done the reading on the BBC report from the Kenyan journalist, right, is that even though there was a law or a decree that allowed them to play 40% of Kenyan music since 2014, and they're looking to push it up to about 75%. The broadcasters were not paying royalties. They were not paying royalties to the songs they were playing, which contributed or led to a number of court cases in Kenya, right? Now, the president of Kenya, as of last year, then made a decree that if you do not pay the royalties, your license, your broadcasting license will not be renewed. So now there's a caveat. There is a catch.
Yeah.
So now you are not just playing the song, you are paying the artist for the song he's doing. You see the intentionality of the government in this conversation. You see the intentionality of the royalty system, or you see the intentionality of the government institution in this conversation, because they understand what it means to their ecosystem. Do you get what I'm saying? And that is the only thing I think we are lacking here. Look at what we talked about not too long ago about the Gamro conversation here. It's been a back and forth. And guess who suffers? The artist, the musician, the creative. We need to move away from being sentimental and understand that we have found ourselves in an ecosystem where it's a money-making ecosystem. If you do not play your role, somebody is going to be affected on the value chain.
Okay, great points as we shared here. I just have to give a quick recap to Camila and Agnes. I think Camila is back on the line now with us. Camila, so we were talking about your government's support and intentionality to try and strengthen that the music markets in there. But before that, Cyril, I don't know. We should ask a question about Ndondo.
Yeah, hi, Camila.
Okay.
So we've also had some streaming platforms, native streaming platforms in Ghana here, and we had quite a struggle trying to make it mass access and get people on board. I just wanted to know the trajectory for Ndondo and how successful your campaign to be a relevant player in the space has been, with the likes of Spotify, Apple Music, and the rest trying to take over Africa. Doing something that's Kenyan for Kenyans might have its challenges, and I want to know how Kenyans accepted that, because in Ghana here it was a very difficult thing to stick by this and try and get people on board. Yeah.
So I think with regards to Mdundo, Agnes would be better placed to speak on that, but I can speak from it from a holistic point of view. So you see, for us at Ziki Media, because we're a music distributor, we tend to work with all these platforms. So like you've mentioned, Spotify, Apple, Boomplay, YouTube, etc., to get our artist content as far wide as possible as we can. But back to your question, you find that, yes, there's the instance where you want to have something that is homegrown, but to some extent you find that having something that is homegrown will only limit you to a certain region or a certain point in time. So you might find you're not being able to use that platform to cross the borders. And right now, where we really need to be in terms of our industry and our artists is to take them global. Yes, you're maximizing on your local audience and your local crowd, but we still have to look at the opportunities that lay for them beyond the borders. So I'd say they would work hand in hand. If you do have a platform that, yes, it's targeting your local audiences or it's targeting your local region, but also what kind of opportunities are you building upon and helping your artists upscale to be able to get into the global space. So whether through collaborations, whether through getting them partnerships or deals with other companies outside of your region, whether it's distribution companies, publishing companies, etc. So how are you going the extra mile to be able to help them get to the global space?
Well, let me throw that to Agnes as well. I don't know if you caught the question earlier on.
Could you please repeat the question?
Hi, Agnes. Cyril here. I just wanted to know that, Mdondo being a native app to Kenya, was it difficult getting Kenyans to buy into the idea, especially with competitors like Spotify, Apple Music, and the likes lurking around? And then also, if there's any challenges that you faced and overcame that you can share with us, because we've also had a few Ghanaian apps that were developed to stream and focus on the elements of Ghanaian music, to give platforms to up-and-comers and to kind of own our narrative. But I wouldn't call them failures, but they were very challenged and short-lived. But it seems Mdondo is doing something different since you are still rising up there. So I just wanted you to kind of give me a little insight into the journey so far, challenges, and maybe the victories that you've been able to chalk. Thanks.
For starters, it was not difficult because we were selling a product that made a lot of sense. Many people at the time wanted to download music and listen to it later when we were starting out. But right now, of course, this landscape has changed, but we have still done the research and there's still a market for people who still want to sell music for download. So based on the research that we did, out of the 400 million people in Africa who are able to access internet, only 100 million of them have access to streaming data. So the remaining 300 million, that is the market that we are trying to reach out. These are people who will probably buy a data bundle, download the music that they want to listen to, and listen to it later. But the 100 million, they have access, they have Wi-Fi in their houses. They do not mind paying the expensive data bundles. Then those ones, they would probably prefer to stream music on a streaming app, maybe like YouTube, where they can also watch the video. But the 300 million people who we are targeting, they would prefer to download maybe a mix. And that's why our mixes are very affordable to target that kind of market. So they'll download a mix, listen to it later when they're probably in the farm or when they are in their shops doing their day-to-day business. In terms of the journey, we have been able to grow, and we are really grateful for the people who have been part of our success journey. Just last year, we celebrated 10 years of being in the market. We currently boast of 23 million monthly active users who have kept growing through the different quarters. So our progression has been up and up and up, and we are really grateful. Of course, we have faced some challenges here and there in terms of licensing, in terms of growing the users that we have, but we have kept, we've been very, very focused on the people who add value, for instance, the advertisers who advertise on our platform and give us revenue, the telco partners, the Vodacom and MTN, who have given us a product that has been able to add more value to the artists that we have. Maybe in terms of successes, I can mention the recent one that we celebrated, where we had a Kenyan artist called Boutros, whose song debuted at #1, and it trended in all the countries, including West Africa. So that was a huge success for us at that time, because we've been really trying to export East African music, and we are hoping to have such more. So the song is called Misbehavior. It's by Boutros, a fast-rising rap artist, and he sang it alongside Sauti Sol member Savara and a top Gengeton artist called Furthermore.
What? Okay, Cyril, take it away.
Yeah, so I heard as part of your submission, you mentioned the ability to access the song so you can listen later on. Now, pardon me if I may be wrong, but that seems a bit counterproductive to what this current streaming culture is, where the encouragement is to keep coming back to the app to stream over and over again, because that's where really the revenue points build up for streaming. So is your model different from the typical streaming apps, in that maybe it's a complimentary service, or it's a service targeting a very specific audience who might not necessarily be able to maximize the streaming platforms that are available? So maybe for people who don't have the data bundles to keep their Spotify on on loop 24/7, will choose an Mdondo because they can download a Diamond Platinum song and listen to it whenever they want. Is that the kind of service it is?
Yeah, that is the service we offer. And also the reason why we do that is because most of our users have feature phones, and most of the feature phones have very limited space. So they will come, they download the song, listen to it, they'll probably delete it to create space for another song. So we have that kind of, most of our users, because of the feature phones, even some of these phones do not have space to store an app. So that is why our target, that's why we have kept our product like that, so that we are able to deliver music in that way. And in the recent past, we have seen a lot of big brands. For instance, in Kenya here, we have East African Breweries Limited, who have gone out to the rural places to do shows. And these artists realize that their fans are not just based in their capital cities, they have fans outside. And we are able to keep those fans able to access their favorite artist's music through that model, as we wait for that internet penetration to get to that level where everybody is able to afford internet in a way that people in Nairobi, for instance, can. People who have Wi-Fi devices in their houses are. So through that model, we have seen even these fans, when such concerts are hosted in the rural areas, they are able to sing word by word because they were able to see that song on Mdundo. They downloaded it and they were also able to play it to their friends. So that's why our model has remained like that, because we want to make music legally accessible. So our biggest competitors is actually the illegal websites that upload music and do not pay the artist. Our competitors is not the traditional digital streaming apps, but it's more of those illegal websites that upload artists' music and they don't pay these artists. So all the content that you find on Mdundo is correctly licensed. We ensure that we get the catalog from the artist, from the distributors in the right manner, and we handle any copyright complaints in a rightful manner as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so Agnes, I'm excited to hear how there is this intentionality with being aware of some of the vultures that may create some kind of decline in the consumption of locally made music. But what I also want to find out is how there have been some kind of government support or government intervention in some of these things. I was just telling, whilst you guys were off, we were just discussing how your president, as of 2021, declared that if broadcasters do not pay royalties, they wouldn't be able to renew their licenses. And that led to, some of the broadcasters obviously paying some of these royalties. This is like one of a good, would you say that that intervention was effective? And what other effective interventions have contributed to making sure that artists in Kenya or East Africa are getting paid?
The government directive was given, yes, but implementation is still in the works. So we are yet to give more feedback on that because it's something that is currently ongoing. But we have seen the government actively support the creative sector. I'd speak for Kenya. A lot of interventions are being done to put artists in the conversations that affect them in terms of passing bills around copyright issues and the creative sector in general. A lot of the collective management organizations have been held accountable. They've been called to do the right thing from time to time. Even these societies, they have artists sitting on those boards. There was recently an initiative by the sports cabinet secretary called Talanta. It's called Talanta. So it was created to bring the artists to the table, to have direct access to government discussions, and they're able to tell the stories that affect artists better than have some bureaucrat somewhere who's trying to offer solutions to an industry that they do not have any relation with. So a lot of work still needs to be done on that sector, but the initiative, the government initiative is looking quite promising, and it's actually bringing more creatives to the table to be able to communicate and share whatever they are going through.
Well, very well said. Looking at another area of artist amplification or creators amplification is the space of events. In here in Ghana, I mean, December has become one of the very big seasons, or the Christmas seasons, where artists, benefit huge in terms of some of the platforms with events that happen in the country. Also, influx of tourists is high within that period. So the shows give a lot of visibility to the artists. What is it like as well in Kenya? I know of Blankets and Wine, if I had the name right, Blankets and Wine, which is a popular event that happens in your town. But what about the event space or the BTL space as well? Can you just give us insights into some of the big platforms that help amplify some of these artists? Camila, let me just start off with you then.
So like you rightly mentioned, Blankets and Wine is one of the platforms that gives artists a chance to come and showcase their creative work. But we do have a number of events that are either planned by, you'd find that they're either planned by maybe brands or big companies that want to get into the event and music space. We're also seeing a lot of artists curating their own shows. So you'll find like Sauti Sol, at the end of every year, they have a very big concert, which they call Soul Fest. And they'll invite different artists from the region, from within the country, to also come and showcase and perform at these events. But for us, what we're also trying to do as Ziki is we're trying to establish our own property that we can use to help the artists generate revenue from events, from brand endorsement, from sponsorships. Because you find with the kind of catalog of artists that we have, briefly I had mentioned Diamond, but we also have Zuchu, Harmonize, Rayvanny, Ali Kiba. We just signed Nandi to our company. So with all this talent that we have, is how best can we use the artists that we have to also showcase them in different events and different concerts. Secondly, we're partnering with a lot of brands because, like I've mentioned, we're finding a lot of brands are getting into the music and the entertainment space. They're setting aside marketing budgets to have concerts, to have events, product launches, etc. So we're working now with a lot of brands to use our artists to be part of their campaigns. And in these campaigns, it could be advertisements, it could be them being brand ambassadors, influencers, because of the large influence and following that they have across board, while they also curate their own shows. So you'll find, like in Tanzania, artists such as Harmonize last year curated his own show called Harmonite, where he performed the whole night for some of his fans and sold tickets. So a lot of artists are actually now adapting to revenue generation metrics aside from the general music, but also looking into the event space. For us, what now we want to try and see is how can we take this event space or event property out of East Africa? Because in Kenya, for example, the events are very massive. Whenever we have concerts, you'll find they are sold out, whether it's an artist coming in or artists locally curating their own shows. They have a lot of fans who attend. But now for us, the challenge is how can we also pull an 80,000 stadium capacity concert, similar to what Burna Boy did at the O2 Arena. But definitely it will be a work in progress, but we are making some serious strides when it comes to the event and entertainment space.
I was going to switch to talk about Salty Soul, but we'll do that in just a few minutes. You touched on the concert, but I want to ask you about the availability of arenas and theaters and co. How is that like in your country as well?
So I'd say right now we don't have the necessary space in terms of the very large arenas. So what you find is we have a few areas that are used for the shows, or a few event spaces that have been used over the years. So usually it's dependent on the preference of the event organizer and the magnitude of fans or attendees that they would like to have. But I do know that the government is strongly, through the ministry, they're strongly working on curating a lot of creative hubs where artists can not only come and maybe perform, but they can have studio sessions at that creative hub. They can create content, which is very imperative for them, whether it's video, audio content. So that is currently in the works, but we use the spaces that are currently available, such as the grounds. There are a number of grounds within the city, Nairobi, and also within other cities. But the government is currently working towards creating bigger creative hubs that the artists can use for that content.
Okay, let me move away from that. So fans of Salty Soul were in shock to hear the news about, their split coming soon, if I can say, like a movie, coming soon to a fan near you. Agnes, tell us about this. What's happening?
Based on what they shared, they said that they were taking an indefinite hiatus. So I think people were, how would I put it, very emotional about it, trying to sensationalize it, yeah? But the fact that they're trying to do also their own projects is really impressive to watch. It's really interesting to watch. Before they made this announcement, they had actually done solo projects, releasing their own EPs and albums, which did also quite very well, and also showed us that they are different, what they bring to the Sauti Soul brand. So it's really interesting to see what channel they are going to take as individual artists, what projects they'll be involved in, how they will showcase their own, their sonic evolutions as individual artists. And who knows, they might also still surprise us with Sauti Soul collaborations here and there. So I would not say it's something to panic about, but rather it's something that is quite exciting to watch. And something that I myself personally am looking forward to see what they'll put out there, and just grow the whole what is it called, the whole Sauti Sol brand, to not just what Sauti Sol do, but what does Bien, Savara, Chimano, and Polycarp do. Yeah.
But we've seen a case study with that of PSquare from Nigeria, for example. Doesn't that in any way also, make you worry about how the brand will sustain if they go individual?
Myself, I'm not worried about that because I think they are very, very strong individuals and they shine in their own capacities. Bien is a good vocalist. He's well known for his vocal range. Savara is an amazing vocalist and also a very good producer. In fact, I always say most of the hooks or the catchiest parts in Sauti Sol songs are usually sung by Savara. That's a very interesting observation I made. Chimano is very fashion forward. He's very sassy and he has his own brand going on. And Polycarp is also an amazing sound engineer. So yes, we've seen when groups break up, sometimes the revenues dwindle, their popularity becomes a bit shaky. But I wouldn't be so scared about that for Sauti Sol, because I feel they are very, very, very talented individuals who actually understand. And on top of that, they understand the business. So I'm sure this decision was not just made out of the blues, but it was very, very strategic. Even if you look at their Alone Together project that they did, I think it was in 2020, where they released their own solo projects. It was very, very impressive to see the muscle, the musical muscle that each of them had. I was personally very impressed to hear Polycarp singing. We had never had Polycarp sing. He calls himself Fancy Fingers. We had never had Fancy Fingers sing. So it was really interesting to see that. So I am super excited to see what they have in store for us. And I'm sure it was a very strategic move, not just done out of the blues.
Well, yeah, that's plus 3 new artists, if I can say that. 3 new powerful artists. We need to have just one Sauti Sol, so it's a 3 new powerful artists now. More expansion in the business. But Olele, have a question for us before we wrap up.
Yes. So I also wanted to find out, we've talked about the market in Kenya. We talked about, how Nigerian music is also, doing its bits in Kenya. But I also wanted to find out how Ghana music or Ghanaian music is faring in East Africa as well. I mean, everybody's looking.
Well, are we faring? Are we faring? We'd love to hear both of you speak on this subject. Maybe Camila, you start us off. How is Ghana music faring?
Ghana music faring? What was the biggest? What is the biggest Ghanaian song in the East African region as we speak?
Drum roll.
I'd say the biggest artist from Ghana who also happens to be under Ziki Media is Sarkodie. So of course Sarkodie is very big when it comes to Ghanaian music, but what we tend to find with our industry is a lot of Ghanaian artists are also not spending quite a bit of time in East Africa. So if they did come and spend a bit of time and probably like collaborate with a few artists, or even not collaborate, just vibe in the studio and get a feeling of who can be on my track or what can we work on together, then that would really help. Of course, we know the likes of Medical. So there are definitely some fans here in East Africa of Ghanaian music. But what I'd really like to see is a lot of the Ghanaian artists actually coming and spending time, because that is what really worked for the Afrobeat artists. I usually joke and say right now we can see Burna Boy performing at an 80,000 capacity stadium. When he was starting out in his career, he used to perform in a very small club here that has now shut down, but he would come and perform because he was building his fan base. At this point in time, I don't think right now we can afford to bring him to perform in Kenya, but it's just coming to also get a feel of the East African market from here. So I'd really encourage a lot of artists to do that. And I know Sarkodie has been doing that quite a bit and coming even for media tours and just interacting with some of the artists here and seeing what projects that they can collaborate on. So definitely with that, we're able to get more listenership for Ghanaian artists locally.
Just to mention the name alone excites us. At least some work is being done as well. So congrats and kudos to Sarkodie. Thank you very much, Camila and Agnes, for joining us on this conversation. Our time is fast spent here this morning. We're truly honored, and we'll be having more conversations as such as well. And hey, if you do have artists looking forward to penetrate the Western market or the Ghanaian music market as well, we are always here to help and looking out for partnerships and collaborations. Thank you very much, ladies. Okay, so we've been having a good conversation with Camila Owora. She's regional manager, East Africa, Ziki Media, and Agnes Opondo, licensing and partnerships manager in Kenya, Ndondu. So, guys, before we even jump into quickly wrapping this up, let me just let you in on this real quickly, that every time we eat, food and sugars are trapped between our teeth, leading to tooth decay and gum disease, in some cases foul breath, okay? Now, brushing your teeth every morning and every evening with Pepsodent Cavity Fighter gives your teeth the protection they need, not leaving you, I beg your pardon, with 10 times stronger teeth, leaving you with 10 times stronger teeth. Pepsodent Cavity Fighter is fortified with pro-fluoride and micro-calcium ingredients, all right? Sealing tiny and invincible holes in your teeth. Charlie. Sorry, let me. Blue fly. 25 years in educating you to brush your teeth day and night with Pepsodent, recommended by the Ghana Dental Association. Like they say, Pepsodent Cavity Fighter, maximum cavity protection, 10 times stronger. And lastly, also discover a world of innovation, a world of luxury, and a world many of us dream about owning. Discover the world of Bang & Olufsen, a particularly true brand in the ever-evolving realm of high-end electronics that you might love to own. You can find it in the Atlantic Tower building, Liberation Road, where each passing day and month a variety of drool-worthy new electronic gadgets are brought in. Home theater, speakers, headphones, TV sets, and soundbar products, they are all released. Check out their showroom, again, Atlantic Tower, Liberation Road, Bang & Olufsen, like no one else. And on that note, guys, we can call it a great start to a great week on Monday. Eastern African music space, quite interesting, similar to what we have here as well. Challenge is not too far-fetched from the Ghanaian music space, but most importantly, we are all African. My name is Jay Foley. Be here with Andrew Tate.
Oh,
okay.
AKA Cyril.
Not bad. Top G, no problem.
Top G,
no problem.
Today's news fought hard for masculinity.
Yeah, men all around the world.
Masculinity.
I know the men are afraid to talk. Don't worry, some of us should talk for you.
Your podcast begins this month. I beg you.
When to my guys, when you are asleep and you hear the kukuru in the next room, and the woman wakes you, that go and check what it is. Both sleep there. Let them rubber come and get both of you. Yeah. Swine.
We are out.